Good morning, my friends. How are you? So, I'm back here to share with you some insights on self regulation, homeostasis, evoking the healing response in our bodies. And I'm very happy that you give me feedback every day and that you are benefiting, I hope, from these posts on a daily basis. So, before I actually continue on this topic of self regulation, homeostasis, and activating and regulating the autonomic nervous system, I want to thank you for your feedback and your suggestions. Many of you have also expressed concern that I sound stuffy at times, that I cough at times, or clear my throat at times, and you're concerned about my health. I'd like to assure you that my health is perfect at the moment. I'm 73 years old, and my biological markers are actually better than when I was 35. So I have excellent health, but thank you for your concern. The reason I'm occasionally stuffy and have to clear my throat is that I have a deviated nasal septum and I have a kapha body type, if you know what that means, the retentive body type in Ayurveda. But thank you for your concern. And many of you have also suggested that I should get a haircut. And thank you very much. I will do that also as soon as there's relaxation on the physical social distancing. So with that, let me share with you today something very important: how you can activate and regulate your autonomic nervous system to bring about homeostasis and self-regulation. Now, before I even start, I should tell you there are hundreds of ways to do this. And if you want, I will, as much as I can, share these with you on a periodic basis or on a regular basis, and we can start today. So first of all, what is the autonomic nervous system? So the autonomic nervous system is, in neuroscience, frequently also referred to as the involuntary nervous system. So we have a voluntary nervous system, which allows us to move our hands and move and speak and anything that involves motor activity and conscious motor activity. That's the voluntary nervous system. It's controlled by a part of our brain called the motor cortex. And the motor cortex for right-handed people is on the left side. For left-handed people is on the right side. This is the voluntary nervous system. But there I go, clearing my throat again. So there is another system in our body which is referred to as the autonomic nervous system or the involuntary system. I'll show you in a few moments why it might be not very accurate to call it the involuntary nervous system, although in most people that's how it behaves. So what is this autonomic nervous system? It's a division of our peripheral nervous system, which is beyond the cortex, and it supplies nerves to various parts of the body, including smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are the muscles that are in our viscera, and it influences, therefore, also the internal organs of our body. The autonomic nervous system is a control system that acts largely unconsciously. That's why we said it's involuntary. And it regulates bodily functions such as heart rate and digestion and respiratory rate, which is breathing rate, pupillary response, whether your pupils are dilated or constricted, urination, and many other functions in our body, which are normally not within our conscious awareness. So within the brain, this autonomic nervous system is controlled or regulated by a part of the limbic system, which is the emotional brain also, and part of that includes the hypothalamus and the pituitary and many biological functions that connect our emotions to our biological function. So in general now, the autonomic nervous system is thought to have three divisions. The sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for what we call the fight or flight response. That is when we perceive threat, then the sympathetic nervous system is activated, which results in high blood pressure, speeding of the heart rate, dilatation of pupils, increased sweating, shutting down of digestion, and diverting of blood to the muscles of the body so that we can either fight or run, the fight, flight, freeze response, which is very useful in a life-threatening situation. But if we perceive threat all the time, even a persistent low-grade perception of threat, as is happening right now, it's not only low-grade, it's pretty high-grade, then we go into what is called sympathetic overdrive, which raises the blood pressure and does all the things I mentioned, but also brings about inflammation, raises cortisol levels, which suppress immune function, raises adrenal level, the levels of adrenaline in the circulation, which causes inflammation in the body. In general, sympathetic overdrive weakens our immune system, makes us more susceptible to disease. There is a second part of the autonomic nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And predominantly the most important nerve in the parasympathetic nervous system is actually the vagus nerve. And this in yogic traditions is also felt to be the healing nerve with its different branches to all the organs of our body. And this parasympathetic nervous system gets activated when we are in deep relaxation. It also gets activated through various breathing techniques, one of which I'll share with you to start today's ongoing discussion on the healing system. But the parasympathetic nervous system is basically responsible for decreasing the activity in our body and for giving us more resilience and flexibility. So when your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, then you actually decrease inflammation, you increase heart rate variability, you increase the depth of your breathing, breathing slows down. In general, homeostasis and self-regulation kick in. Of course, the highest activity of the parasympathetic nervous system occurs both with deepening and slowing of the breath, but also stillness in the mind. So, as I've mentioned before, the only experience we have is sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. And by sensations, I also mean sense perceptions. And of course, by thoughts, I mean the interpretation of experience that's happening through perceptual activity. And what I've also said in the past is that sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, and perceptions are entangled, which means that they all influence each other. And they also influence our autonomic nervous system. So if you want to immediately activate your parasympathetic nervous system, you have to learn how to both quieten the mind. The quiet mind is the healing mind. Deepen the breathing. And then there are, as I said, various techniques, and I'll mention all these from time to time, that can activate your parasympathetic nervous system and evoke the healing response. Now, there's a third part of the autonomic nervous system that people are now beginning to talk about, and this is what is referred to as the it has various names, but it's also referred to as the enteric nervous system, which is the neural networks that are present in your gut, in your stomach lining, and your colon, and all that. So the enteric nervous system, which is part of our visceral organs, is of course influenced by the activity of the microbiome, which is the bacterial genes that live in our gut. And these bacterial genes are very sensitive to diet. So even diet can influence what we call emotions, and it can influence both the autonomic system, both the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic system. And I can talk more about diet at a future conversation here, in a future video, because your diet can also influence the activity of your autonomic nervous system, your microbiomes, and diet can cause both inflammation and decrease in inflammation. Diet can also trigger the healing response from within the body by shifting the microbiome from being inflammatory to non-inflammatory. So that's a little bit about the autonomic nervous system. And the reason it's called the autonomic nervous system or involuntary nervous system, as I said before, is that its activity is beyond the level of our conscious awareness. But its activity is influenced by our emotions. So emotions can both trigger the healing response or also cause immunocompromisation. And it is through the autonomic nervous system that this happens. So today what I'd like to share with you the simplest way to start your journey to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, and to begin the process of self-regulation, decrease inflammation, and evoking the healing response from within the body. And I'm going to read some of this from notes I have prepared from the past, and this is today's technique for activating the healing response. So if you're ready, let's start. Okay, so this technique is basically a very basic pranayama, which is very easy to do in the lying down position. So for this, and you can listen to the instructions right now and practice this on your own later, but best to do this lying down flat on your back on a hard surface, the floor. Of course, you can use like a yoga mat, or you can also use a carpet or whatever. Okay, so let's start. Now I'm going to give you the instructions from my notes, and then you can practice this later. And if you find this useful, I'll introduce various kinds of pranayama to selectively evoke healing through different branches of the vagus nerve. I'll talk about kriyas and bandhas and yogasanas and everything else that we can do to maximize the activity of our parasympathetic nervous system and evoke the healing response. Okay, so lie comfortably on the ground in Shavasana. Shavasana means flat on your back, arms on your side, totally relaxed, your legs extended. Place the right hand on the abdomen just above the navel. Okay, so if I was lying down, this is what I would do. I would place my right hand above the navel on the abdomen and the left hand over the center of the chest. Observe the spontaneous breath without controlling it in any way. And let your breath be absolutely natural. And now we have to focus on what we call abdominal breathing. And when you practice abdominal breathing, that is actually the best way to breathe. And always remember to breathe through the nose. To practice abdominal breathing, and these are my notes from the great teacher Swami Satyanand Saraswati. And so he says, to practice abdominal breathing, feel as though you are drawing the energy and breath in and out directly through the navel. So put your attention on the navel and just have the feeling that the breath is going in and out through the navel. The right hand will move up with inhalation and down with exhalation. So as you inhale, the right hand moves up and it moves down with exhalation. The left hand remains almost still. Let the abdomen relax. Do not try to force the movement in any way. Do not expand the chest or move the shoulders. Feel the abdomen expanding and contracting. Continue breathing slowly and deeply. Inhale while expanding the abdomen as much as is comfortable without expanding the rib cage. At the end of the inhalation, the diaphragm will be compressing the abdomen. So at the end of the inhalation, the diaphragm will be compressing the abdomen and the navel will be at its highest point outwards. On exhalation, the diaphragm moves upward and the abdomen moves downward. So on exhalation, the diaphragm moves upward, the abdomen moves downward. At the end of the exhalation, the abdomen will be contracted and the navel compressed towards the spine. So once again, at the end of the exhalation, the abdomen will be contracted and the navel compressed towards the spine. Just do this for a few minutes and relax any effort, and once again watch the spontaneous breathing pattern. Bring the awareness back to observing the physical body as a whole. Be aware of the surroundings, and then when you're done, you can also gently open the eyes. So very simple. Slow down your breathing. Breathe through the abdomen. Use your hands as a monitor. So the right hand over the abdomen, moving back and forth, the navel going back and forth, the chest relatively still, and breathe naturally. And once you can do this for a few minutes, then slow down your breathing to 8 from the regular, which is about 14. And you can do that just by inhaling to the count of 6, pausing to the count of 2, and exhaling to the count of 4. This will bring your breathing rate from 14 to about 8. It will activate your heart rate variability, stimulate the vagus nerve, and at the end of the procedure, if you want to make a humming sound like or practice Brahmari pranayam, you will actually enhance the activity of your vagus nerve. So Kathy Erickson says, stop talking, please. Okay, Kathy, I'm going to stop. Thank you. Stopping right now. Thank you for your suggestion.